Currently, I'm reviewing a range of electric vehicle chargers on my channel, but one question that comes up quite a lot is, should you have a tethered charger or an untethered charger? And I'm going to look at the pros and cons of both and why it's not actually a one solution fits all. Firstly, let's start with untethered. So untethered means that the cable is not built into the charger. So it has a socket on the front. So people also refer to this as a socketed charger. The end of this socket is the same regardless of what end your car uses. And the advantage of this means that you can plug in a Type 1 car or a Type 2 car to these chargers, because it's the cable that's supplied with your car that you'll be plugging into this. Now, the advantage of being able to plug in any type of electric car means if you're a multiple household using multiple different EVs of different years, Type 1 and Type 2, you can plug any vehicle into the front of this by just using the cable that comes supplied with the car. So multiple EV households will find this useful. If you're renting accommodation, you may find this useful. If you're the landlord and you're agreeing, you may want to insist that you have an untethered, so your future owner has the option of having any other charger. You might also want it if you're an Airbnb host, or if you do hotels, you might want to go for a public charger, because it means that any electric vehicle can charge on this connection. They can also look a lot neater, because this is basically what all of them look like. They've got no cable attached, and they can look a lot neater, a lot less messy on the front than a scattered cable coiled up at the front. Even some of the best cable tidy systems, they're either really big units trying to hide the cable, or they just look a little bit not as neat. I do believe that I think untethered connections do look a little bit more pleasant on the front of a house, and maybe I'm not the only one. However, you can lock a cable into these as well. So if you wanted to put a cable, some of these have lock systems, so you can actually permanently lock a cable and have the advantage of having an untethered and tethered unit all in one. Now, one thing that people think is a pro of these untethered units, but it's not true, and it's a bit of a myth, and that is that these are future-proof. There is no such thing that is completely untrue about these. All EVs, electric cars, sold in the EU at the moment and for pretty much forever are Type 2. So if you're never going to go to an old EV, if you're a household, you own the house, you bought the house, and you're thinking of going tethered or untethered, and you have a new EV, and you're never going to buy an old EV that uses a Type 1 connection, you have future-proofed yourself by buying a tethered connection with a Type 2 socket, because they're not going to change that plug. It's not going to go from Type 2 to anything different anytime soon. Type 2 now uses CCS at the same time at the bottom too, with these two DC pins, and it's the same plug that fits at your house for charging. So the rumour that everyone says that these are future-proof is just not true. Now, the one last pro about this, the tiny little pro about these untethered units, which I quite like, is you have got the advantage, like I said, of plugging your own cable and locking it in, which means if you did run over your Type 2 cable, and yes, it does happen, people do run over their cables and damage them, it means that you can just pull the old one out, throw it away, and buy a new one and re-secure it into this. So it has got that advantage that you won't have to call out an electrician if you damage the cable. But if you're looking after things properly, that pro really shouldn't matter. Now, regarding the cons of this unit, well, that's pretty much all the pros that we're about to mention with tethered. So tethered comes with a cable built into the charger. So the charger you buy and the cable is already pre-attached into the charger, directly into the charger. There's no socket. So it's straight into the charger, cable comes out, and you'll have on the end either a Type 2 like this one I'm holding here, or a Type 1. And this lies pretty much the only con. And that is if you currently have a Type 1 car, or you have friends and family that have a Type 1 car that will be charging at your house, and you have a Type 2 charger, they won't be able to use your Type 2 charger. And if you have a Type 1 charger, your friends and family won't be able to use your car if they have a Type 2 car. The other disadvantage of that is if you buy one of these and you currently have a Type 1 car, your next car will be a Type 2, 100% be a Type 2, which means that you're going to have this charger, basically an electrician to come around to replace this cable for a Type 2 charger. So if you currently have a Type 1 car or have family and friends that are going to come round with Type 1 cars and they need to charge at yours, then get an untethered charger fitted. But if you are currently driving a Type 2 car and your friends and family are all likely going to be buying Type 2 cars, then just get a tethered charger for about all the pros I'm about to mention on why you should get tethered. So it's more beneficial because, first of all, Type 2. It's going to be the future of every single electric car sold in the EU, which means you've got a charger that will fit your needs pretty much forever. It's the future of charging is Type 2 here in the EU and Europe, so get a Type 2 charger. Second of all, it's always here. The cable is always there. It's no getting it out of your boot, no moving all your shopping, no finding the charging bag, no putting it away on a rainy day, no getting it out on a rainy day. It's just there on your wall, ready to pull off the holster and plug straight in the car. And that relies the next part. Most people who have untethered chargers either leave the cable permanently plugged in anyway, in which case they've got a tethered charger, and the other people who've got untethered charger will throw the cable in the boot and it never gets put away and it's always just done neat in the boot. So a lot of these come now with cable sort of guides. So this one, you can actually wrap the cable around the unit. Some of them have it, they also sell a wrapping holster for it. Some of the other chargers have holsters that you wrap around and then put the gun in, which is basically the Type 2 thing. They all have different solutions and you can have a look at them on my charger reviews. Most of the ones I've been doing are actually been untethered because that's the units they've sent me, but they all do tethered chargers. If you check out their websites, you can see their different cable managements, but they all basically have their own cable management. And I used to be an untethered lover. I used to think untethered chargers were better because they were neater. And then you realise practicality is that having a tethered charger makes a lot more sense when you're having to plug it in. And having to plug it in and put the cable away, this makes way more sense just to have it there, especially when it is belting down with rain here in the UK. The other advantage of having it built in, well, it's cheaper than buying an untethered charger and then just buying a cable that you're going to leave permanently plugged in, because that's more the cost. You're buying a cable and a charger. But if you buy it built in, you're just buying a charger that in reality costs about £25 to about £50 more to have a tethered connection. And the other advantage of having the cable built in, well, if the cable goes faulty or any of these pins go faulty, you get them covered under the warranty. And under OLEV, that's 3 years. But if it's just a normal guarantee, it's still 12 months. If you bought an untethered charger and the cable went faulty, well, yes, you probably could get your money back from that cable, but what if that cable's an old cable that you bought second hand? It just seems a bit of a waste of money. And this is where it moves on to our next little point about this. And that is, I still prefer an untethered charger, just because I prefer the look of it. But if you ask my wife, who's the one who charges the car at home and plugs them in, yeah, she prefers tethered. And I am a good husband and I believe that she's right. And I've got to admit, some of the newer tethered chargers that are coming out, especially stuff like the wall box, they do look quite neat when the cable's wrapped around. They do look quite nice. The Omi cable that I've got at home at the moment, the cable, the way I've cable managed it, it looks fine. It wraps up better, and it's a lot better wrapped up against the wall, wet, covered in dirt and grime, than wrapped up in our boot, which is nice and clean, covered in grime. So they are better. I've got to admit, tethered chargers are better. So if you're thinking get a charger, try looking at rightcharge.co.uk/EVNIC in lowercase, and they'll help find a local charge installer near you. Check out some of the reviews I've got on chargers. I've got a whole heap of them at the moment, and I just want to say a massive thank you to all my patrons and to you lot for getting me past 10,000 YouTube subscribers, and that is just amazing to know. And a last thing, I just want to say a very, very special thank you to my first YouTube member. He knows who he is. I don't know if he wants his name reading out, so if he comments down below, you'll see who he is, because he has a little badge next to his name to say he's a YouTube member. Thank you very, very much, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.